have they done enough to improve this defense enough?
I think they've done as much as they can do. Have they done enough? I don't know, particularly because we're putting in this new scheme up here, and everybody's really wanting to know, how do guys like Kenneth Murray Jr. fit? Is he going to be gap shooting? What are his responsibilities? Especially since they're going from two gap to one gap, and then you got just an overload of talent at this rush linebacker position, which seems like it's going to be a star position. The way it's been described to me, guys are going to stand up in 1'9" and go kill quarterbacks, but also they're going to have to be able to drop back 12 yards deep and make a play. And asking a guy who's 6'4", around 250 to do that is really difficult. And to say nothing of, you don't know what the back end is going to look like. You know, you're probably going to run 5 defensive backs as your base package. So that nickel guy is going to have to be really good. We have an understanding that Brendan Radley-Hiles is going to play nickel, but behind him, don't really know. You're really grasping at straws when you're trying to project where guys are going to play, even as you know you have a lot of veterans returning.
Yeah, you know, it looks, and Ari and I talked about that earlier when we were talking about on the defensive side of the ball. Seems to me that there's going to be a lot of young players. It's right now, it's just kind of, he's trying to find his chemistry, what guys fit in. You mentioned defensive linemen having to drop and guys, you know, streamlining down and losing weight to be faster. Is that kind of a muddy picture right now as far as who's going to be in the back end? You know, Robert Barnes, I mean, you see players that, you know, that played last year, but now you have this influx of freshmen they're going to play. Is that a little muddy as far as who may actually, you know, start opening day?
Oh, no doubt, Tony. I mean, because number one, you had the same problem you had last year in that who the hell plays safety? You know, that's a really interesting question, and you got a lot of bodies back there, but as much as you wanted somebody to take that mantle at free or strong, you really didn't have an answer. I mean, we're talking about maybe Patrick Fields paired with Robert Barnes, Chance Sylvie paired with Jordan Parker. Don't really know where Justin Broyles is going to fit in, to say nothing of Delarian Turner-Yell. And you brought in a couple of really nice players in Jeremiah Cradell out of Mater Dei, and of course Ty Diarman, who's from the Texas area down in Arlington. But yeah, I mean, it's really muddy because I don't think he knows who he can trust, and I'm really interested to see that position as Grinch is coaching it. Like, he's a safety. He's a safeties coach everywhere he goes. Even at Ohio State, that was his position. So I expect that to be a position of strength, even as I think it is the weakest position from an experience standpoint that Oklahoma has.
Talking with R.J. Young here, OU insider and Tulsa, the sports animal in Tulsa. Out of these big-time freshmen stepping in, Jaden Hazelwood, Theo Wease, Trajan Bridges, Austin Stogner, who do you think emerges and produces this year's true freshman?
I think right now my money's on Trajan Bridges, kid out of Hebron, because he has the ability to play 3 different positions in this offense. He can play X, he can play Z, he can play H. That's slot and both outside receivers, right? Because he has the frame to do it and the speed to do it, and he can compete for those jump balls that we expect to go to bigger, taller receivers like CeeDee Lamb or Jaden Hazelwood. But the guy who is the best, most polished prospect to date has to be Theo Wease, kid out of Allen, Texas. I've loved his game from the start. This is a dude who describes the worst thing in the world as dropping a pass. He knows when he's open. He knows that he's always open, and he knows that a 50-50 ball is a thing that he should come down with. I think Jaden Hazelwood still has some work to do. He's vaunted. He's very good. He's gifted. But I really think that he's going to use this year to get a bit better because those other 2 guys are really good. And the word on Austin Stogner is he just loves to compete. This is a guy who is so large and so thin to be so large that you could see him putting on enough weight to play offensive tackle if that's what you want him to do, and he's nasty enough to do that. Because at the wide position, Lincoln thinks of that as another receiver. He's actually called that their 4th 5-star receiver, but that dude loves to fight. He loves to get after people, and I think that is going to be needed, and I'm excited about that at the tight end position because I don't know the last time we had a guy out at Oklahoma who just wanted to throw hands at people and play tight end.
Yeah, that's, it takes a kind of a special person to do that, to be able to develop in that type of role. You shifted back on the defensive side of the ball. When you look at the defensive line, I know you mentioned, what they're expecting to come off the edge, but when you mention names like LaRon Stokes, Ronnie Perkins, Kenneth Mann, as a senior, and then some of these younger guys. What sticks out? I mean, what do you think the transition would be for a different type of philosophy? Well, where you're just asked to go up in a one gap? Because to me, as a defensive lineman, as a defensive player, that's a lot of fun to play.
No, 100%. And I think Neville Gallimore is one of these guys that the scheme is built for. I mean, you look at Washington State and what Grinch did there with Hercules Mataafa, who was 250, right, and turned that guy into an All-American. And we all know the kind of talent that Gallimore has. But also, LaRon Stokes could thrive in this kind of a defense because this is, I mean, he made reference to it. Grinch said this, I know that this works, not just at Washington State, but Gary Pinkel ran this at Missouri when I was there. We take advantage of smaller, faster guys, and we want to get them down to where they can split between these interior offensive linemen and get into the backfield. But the thing that is most exciting to me, and also I think more of a conundrum, is what are you going to do at that pass rusher spot, because you got so many bodies. I mean, Jalen Redmond, Ronnie Perkins, David Ugwebu, Joseph Wette, Mark Jackson. I mean, you got a bunch of guys that you can throw in there, but that's only if you're in passing situations, right? So if people wanted to line up and run at you, I'm not so sure that they're not going to get run through. Now, I've been assured that ain't going to happen, but I'll believe it when I see it, because I know that people would love to run the ball against this defense, if for no other reason than to keep the ball out of the hands of the offense. So I'm really interested to see how they hold up from a run perspective rather than a pass rush perspective.
On the defensive side, again, RJ, we were just talking about this last segment, but how much do you think it matters, not necessarily scheme, we talk about one gap or two gap or whatever we're talking about, but how much does it matter that players buy into what the coach is trying to say? And it certainly seems like that's the case here with Alex.
It matters more than anything else you're doing. That was why Mike Stoops lost his job. He lost the room. Like, we all agree that Mike Stoops knows from football, right? And there was a time when people were talking about Mike Stoops in the way that we talk about Brent Venables now, right? That guy is the best at what he does. It's only a matter of time before he gets a head coaching job. And then he got back to the Big 12 and everything went haywire. But I think with Grinch, that was the thing. And I think him bringing in guys like Roy Manning and Brian Odom, guys that have coached with him, know the philosophy, know what they're doing, have a consistent message, and they're doing as much to try to win the players as the players are to try to win them to get jobs. And I wonder how that's going to hold up the first time they get tested, because it's one thing to have a plan. It's one thing to put that plan into action during practice, but the in-game adjustments, which is where we all thought that Mike Stoops fell apart. And you know, it's fun to watch him coming apart in the booth. But hey, man, I just want the kids to know the call, and I want them to have confidence that they can go out there and play ball, and they're not going to get yelled at for making mistakes. And apparently, Grinch's thing is, I don't care that you make mistakes. I care that you go with maximum speed. I care that you try to strip the football, and I care that you gang tackle. If those things happen, he believes they're going to be a good defense. And if the players believe what he's telling them, it's going to be fine. And then you got Kenneth Murray Jr. buying in, and I think that's a strength of his. You have guys like Trey Brown buying in. That's a strength of his. You guys got guys like Neville Gallimore who are buying in, and that's a strength. If you got those dudes, your message should carry.
Yeah. All right, so one position that doesn't lack depth and talent, that's a running back position. You look at Kennedy Brooks, Trey Sermon, and T.J. Fletcher. Which of those three has the most upside? I mean, I know that's a tough question, but considering how talented this bunch is, it's scary on offense what kind of weapons they have.
Well, Kennedy Brooks would have the most upside from a physical standpoint. He still can fill out. He could put on another 20 pounds and be better, right? Trey Sermon, I think, is where he's going to be, and that's really doggone good. T.J. Fletcher, I think, might even have a hard time getting on the field, and that's really awkward to say about a guy who was an All-American in high school. But you look behind him, you got Ramondre Stevenson, who is bigger than a lot of the people chasing him. That's an enormous back. He might be the biggest back at Oklahoma since Samaje Perine. And then behind him, Marcus Major. That's a dude who has 4.4 speed. He's already around 215 pounds. He's a true freshman. The depth there is, yes, some of the best in college football, but we've learned at Oklahoma, if nothing else, you got to have a bunch of running backs because you never know what you're going to have in November. I mean, by, I think, Bedlam, you're down to one healthy running back after having 4 or 5 that you thought were going to get carries. So upside Kennedy Brooks, but also keep a lookout for Marcus Major.
Talk with RJ Young, OU insider, as well as the Tulsa sports animal right here on Big 12 This Morning, Sirius XM, channel 375. 129th in FBS last year, their secondary and pass defense. So I know you mentioned safety and Alex Grinch, you know, the safeties coach, and that's always what he's been, and that's huge for OU now, given that they have major question marks at the safety position. But, I mean, how much more improved do you expect this team to be, and where's the talent level on their DBs and safeties?
I expect them to have a better understanding of what their responsibilities are, right? That's what I really want to see. I want them to simplify it so that everybody knows where they're supposed to be. You know where your help is. But I don't necessarily expect them to be better from a talent standpoint. But, if you can coach it up a little bit, I think they should be there. Because the thing about the cornerback position, we talked about the safety position, Parnell Motley should be the kind of guy that was up for All-American, right? Because the way that he came into this league, having 2 interceptions early on when he got some playing time, he's kind of regressed, right? And you could have said that about Jordan Thomas when he was at Oklahoma. That is what I really want to see changed. And I think Roy Manning's going to have the most to do with that, because that position more than any other is about what's going on between your ears. Because all of those kids have ability. All those kids have speed. It's, hey, I need y'all turned up to 11. I need y'all jacked up. I need y'all ready to hit people. Come downhill, know your responsibilities, and go fly around. That is the place where you can make the most strides, but it's also the place where you can routinely get beat. I mean, come November, if they're getting beat for 500 yards through the air, we're going to be talking about it like we were last year, right? So if you got the cornerback position right, then you're going to have a pretty good defense.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the whole Alex Grinch, his philosophy and everything plays in, because as Ari mentioned, 129th in total pass defense. It can't get any worse.
No, I mean, look, that was a joke that he was making early in the year, saying I wanted to tattoo it on their foreheads, right? And they were doing reps in the strength and conditioning room with Bennie Wiley saying, hey, we're going to do 129 of these because this is a nasty number. This is a nasty word. Now, I love how coaches want to reference statistics when it works for their argument like the rest of us, and then they'll want to throw statistics out, because now the thing they're going is, hey, that was last year. We're going to be better this year. All right, but how much better? That's the other question, because we've long said that if Oklahoma had anything like a middling defense, they might be back-to-back national champs. And if you have the kind of offensive output that you expect to have, that's really going to be the difference is, can you get third down stops, and can you stop people from passing for 400 yards? Not 300 yards, 400 yards. Can you do what every other team in college football seemed to be able to do last year? It's bonkers to think about this at Oklahoma, but that's where you're at.
RJ Young, make sure to go check out his YouTube page. Does fantastic work.
Great
also
stuff, RJ.
On the Sports Animal in Tulsa and OU Insider. This man knows a lot about football and a lot about Oklahoma football. RJ, you're the best, man. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Ari. Thanks, Tony.